Gopala Principal Vrindavan Hari Lal ki Jai. Let us all stand. We have our opening arati. Let us clasp our hands together, close our eyes, bow our heads. Let us concentrate on that form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the form of Bhagavan Shri Krishna. As we offer that arati, that circular motion with the light, we are forging that infinite bond of love and devotion. You are rekindling your true identity with Bhagavan. And you are surrendering yourself totally and completely at His lotus-like feet. Picture the feet of the Lord in your mind. You're showering it with tulsi leaves, with flowers, and the soft, enchanting music of the bansuri fills the atmosphere. Surrender yourself at the lotus-like feet of Bhagwan. प्रेम से बोलो वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। Take your seats, please. May I, on behalf of the members and the management of the Shri Parameshwari Durga Devi Ashram Incorporated, extend a special and warm welcome to each one of you to our ongoing Garud Puran Yajna. Tonight in our midst, we are especially blessed to have the presence of Pandit Visramji. And to all of you devotees who are coming from far and wide, those of you who are coming from the Pinal Baraco area, welcome. Princess Town area, coming in from San Luis Grande, San Luis Chiquito, welcome to our ashram, welcome to our yajna. Coming in from Las Lomas, Chinchin, and other parts of central Trinidad, welcome to our ongoing yajna. Tonight's, before I go into tonight's discourse, let me just remind you of the procedure for tonight, the program of activities. Tonight I'll be continuing from where I left off last day. Remember, due to the time constraint, I had to split the katha into two. Tonight I'll be concluding that katha. We'll be closing katha a little early today. To facilitate the graduation ceremony, we have the first aid courses that we executed last year. So the students or the participants in that first aid program will be graduating tonight, and the certificate, there is a certificate program that was put in place which is officially recognized by the Ministry of Education. So tonight you will see the first batch of graduates of the basic first aid course coming out of our Narayan Seva unit of this ashram. A few years ago we had the graduation ceremony for nows and what is it? Havan? Yeah, Havan. Those of you did the course in Havan and did the courses in as could be initiated as a now. So as time go by, many other developmental programs will be brought on stream and you'll be kept up to date about it. So tonight, we'll be going to the pages of the Devi Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Mahapuran. And last night I left you at the Vaitarani. Not a nice place to left you, right? But I left you at the Vaitarani, and I told you, if you're fortunate to do the Gaudan while you were alive, I told you of the blessings that you receive from the Gaudan, even though you saw all along that what happens to the soul after it exits the body is as a direct consequence of your own karma. So if through the virtue of your own lifestyle you put yourself in the sudden pathway to the abode of Yama and you are experiencing these difficulties, how the ceremony of the Gaudan could help you. And that is why I left you last night. So the obvious question will come, why the cow? Why only the cow? We heard a description of the Vaitarani and it's very gruesome in nature. But why the cow? They are much more powerful creatures. Why not an elephant or a horse? If you want to be modern in modern technology, why do a Hilux stand? Have 4x4 training in the gear, why not be glass air conditioned? The heat and the river thing ain't going to bother you. What is so unique and so special about the cow? So tonight's discourse will not only help you understand why the sacred cow was chosen, but you'll understand why the cow itself is sacred. Why it stands above all other creatures in Sanatana Dharma. So tonight we'll go to the Bhagavad Mahapuran to understand that. Before we go into the depths of tonight's discourse, let us clasp our hands together, close our eyes, bow our heads. Let us contemplate on that form of Omkar, that primordial song which represents the infinite Brahman, from which all manifestation evolved. It is that infinite unmanifested energy that takes the form of Bhagavan Ganapati, he who is the giver of success, the remover of all obstacles, and is always first and foremost amongst the host of the Devatas. We next focus our attention on the Devi Saraswati, through whose blessings our intelligence will be opened. Through her grace, the knowledge disseminated will be able to be absorbed, interpreted and understood and applied in our daily life. We pay salutations to our own Reverend Guruji, who are the ambassadors of God upon earth, who is the link between humanity and divinity. And then to the Supreme Lord himself, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, the presiding deity of our Ayodhya. We surrender totally and completely at his lotus-like feet. मुखारविन्दो संयुक्तं नित्यं ध्यायन्ति योगिनः कामदा मोक्षदं चैव ओंकाराय नमो नमः। ॐ वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय कोटिसूर्या समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती महाभागे विद्याकमलविरोचनी विद्यारूपे विशालक्ष्ये विद्यादेही नमोस्तुते। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ध्यानमूलं गुरुर्मूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरुपरम् मंत्रमूलं गुरुर्नवाद्य मोक्षमूलं गुरुकृपा। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातु महाकन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ देवकी नन्दन विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो कृष्णा प्रचोदयात्। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नमः। Everybody together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namaha. Prem se bolo Shri Krishna Chandra ki Jai. Again to all devotees, special welcome to all our guests, and I do thank you for taking the time off from your family life to be with us and to come and sit at the feet of the Lord together with us as we engage in satsang. It is true, only association like this will foster that bond within each other and within society and release that positive energy that will not only protect us and our family, but will also radiate into the wider society and help solve or remedy some of the ills that is out there. Again tonight we go over to the Bhagavad Mahapuran, where we look at the glory and the greatness of Gau Mata. Now first of all we have to understand, in Garu Puran, I told you about the benefits of the Gaudan. Last night, I told you, if by chance Yam decreed that you must be taken along the southern path to the abode to his abode, and we saw a very tortuous pathway to the abode of Yama in the southern direction, then by virtue of your own karma, you qualify for that. And Garuji asking, oh Lord Vishnu, please provide some sort of relief, even though these jivas deluded by your maya committed many atrocities and by virtue of their bad karma is qualified to suffer the consequences of such. Let your mercy be shown upon them. Devise some way necessary by which the jivas could at least receive some type of relief from their torture. And Sri Vishnu Bhavan, he advised, "O Guruji, there is the ceremony of the Gaudan, and once it is performed during the lifetime of the individual, at least once, when the time comes to cross the Vaitarini, it is the sacred cow of Bhagavan Krishna that comes." And you see the picture, that's why again I told you, put up the pictorial representation so you can see. If you see Yama is judging the man and the woman, on the bottom, one of them is being suffered tremendously by the tortures in the Vaitarini. He didn't do the Gaudan, and the person who did the Gaudan, the sacred cow is taking them across. And I left you there last night. So why the cow? Why not something else? Why not some other creature? So tonight we have to understand how the cow get that status. And that katha that deals with the glory and the greatness, how Gau Mata got her authority, her status, we go over to Bhagavad Mahapuran. But before we go over to Bhagavad Mahapuran, let me give you the genealogy of the cow. The first cow that exists, or the first cow that is recorded in our scripture, is in the Yajurveda. It is said the cow produced all the necessary ingredients for Vedic rishis to use to perform their yajnas. And the first cow came out of the Samudra Martan, the churning of the ocean. Her name was Surabhi. Surabhi Mata stayed with Brahma in Brahmalok, Satyalok. There came a time when Lord Indra was cast out of the heavens by the demon Vitrasur, and because eventually Indra defeated him, and the sin of having committed murder of a Brahman fell upon Indra, and Brahmadev advised Indra, you must perform the Gaudan ceremony to win back your wealth in the heavens. And Surabhi at that time had a daughter. Her name was Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu was given to Indra, and Indra invited the Saptarishi to perform the yajna. And during that yajna, Indra carried that cow to Vashish Rishi, the chief Pandit or the chief Rishi of that, presided over that yajna at that time. And so Kamadhenu came and stayed with Vashish Rishi. And that is how the cow came upon it. During the course of time, Kamadhenu gave birth to another heifer, and her name was Nandini. This Nandini also possessed the divine qualities of her mother Kamadhenu, and she was given in hand to Jamar Agni, the father of Parashuram. So this is the genealogy of the divine cow. From Samudra Martan, the children of the ocean, Surabhi Mata, from Surabhi Kamadhenu, Kamadhenu to Nandini, and there is where all the cows descended upon the face of the earth. And coincidentally, it is that cow, both Kamadhenu and Nandini, because they wanted to be possessed by others, wars were fought over them. The same Rishi we know as Vishwamitra, at one time he wanted the cow from Vashish. And at that time Vishwamitra was a king. Having seen the power of Vashish Rishi, he decided to renounce being a king and become a Brahma Rishi. Jamaragni, he too hosted a king, and the king was impressed by his hospitality. He was wondering how come a sannyasi could have such elaborate and lavish preparation that is fit for royalty. And when he inquired, Nandini provided him with all the ingredients that was needed for his reception. And deciding that he should guard the cow for himself, a battle was fought and an animosity developed. And so there is where the conflict between the Kshatriyas and the Brahmanas came into being. Eventually, Parshuram had to intervene, and he went around the world slaughtering because his father was murdered. The kings murdered the father in order to get the cow. Parshuram, vowing to take revenge or avenge the father's death, being the avatar of Lord Vishnu, he went around the universe 21 times, slaughtering the unrighteous kings. So that is just a brief synopsis of the type of wealth the cows possess. Now you're understanding why our grandparents was to judge the wealth status of an individual, of a family, by the amount of cows they had long time. You all know that? Huh? The more cattle he had, the more wealthy he was considered to be. Because just as the king realized, and Vishwamitra realized that Vashish was very wealthy, not only because of his spiritual nature, but because of the cow providing all the necessities and amenities of life. And Jamalagni had the same. They fought to possess that wealth. And since then to now, cows in Sanatan Dharma are considered a measure of one's wealth in society. In the Western world, what they are measured as? McDonald's, How much burger Big Mac continue to eat, Tonight you will see how much you could eat. By the way, how many of you have this publication? The Lakshmi publication of the ashram, If you didn't get this yet, the information I'm about to give you is in here. At least some of it. Right? So you could get a copy of it and you could have some reading. You know, we are fast becoming an illiterate society. We like pictures, we like movies, but we don't like to exercise the brain. We don't like to read. So how did the cow become sacred? Let us hear. Unrighteousness had reigned supreme, is reigning supreme. It is a time of Dwapar Yuga. And the demon Kans was reigning Kshatri. He was murdering the rishis. You know what he was doing? He was to yoke the rishis to his chariot and make them pull the chariot like horses. And so many sadhus were killed that way, many devotees. Anyway, you have people like us gathering, like you and I sitting chanting the name of God and doing puja and so on, he will send the soldiers to kill them. And so Adharma was at its peak. Dharati Mata couldn't bear it anymore. And she approached Lord Brahma together with all the devatas, Lord Indra, all the Vedic rishis, all the Vedic devatas, the demigods. They're all in Satyalok, pleading to Lord Brahma. O Lord Brahma, I cannot bear the burden of one sinner upon my surface. Find some solution to the problem. And let us hear what Brahmadev advised Dharati Mata. Shri Krishna Sharanam Namah, Shri Krishna Sharanam Praise the Lord Shri Krishna Chandra ki Jai. Dharti Mata, with all her distresses, she goes to Satyalok, the abode of Lord Brahma, and she's praying, "Oh Lord Brahma." Tears are flowing from her eyes. And Mother Dharti Devi, she's saying, "Oh Brahmadev, I cannot take this anymore. The torture is too much. The adharma is too much. Oh Brahmadev, I can bear the burden of the oceans, of the mountains, all that there is, but I cannot bear the sin of one individual." And Kans is creating atrocities after atrocities. Babies are being murdered, rishis are being murdered, Vedic rites and rituals, pujas are being destroyed. O Brahmadev, find a solution to this problem. And so Lord Brahma is saying, "O Dharti, I too am powerless in this situation. However, let us all go to the shores of the Kshir Sagar, where the Supreme Narayan resides, and he will definitely come to your assistance. O Dharti, listen to me. The Lord is very fond of the cow. Therefore, you take the form of a cow and approach the Lord on the banks of the Kshir Sagar." And immediately Dharti Mata, she transformed herself into a cow. Brahmadev, looking at all, "O Devtas, O Rishis, take up residence in the cow body and go to the shores of the Kshir Sagar and collectively plead with the Lord to relieve you of your burden." And immediately as Lord Brahma gave the command, all the Devtas, the Teja, their energy, they entered into different parts of the cow body. For example, Lord Brahma himself sit at the back of the cow. Lord Shiva went between the eyes of the cow. Hanuman went on the right foot. Bhairava Baba went on the left foot. Nag Devta on the tail. Agni Devta went in the stomach. Varun Devta went in the bladder. And so different parts of the body, different Devtas went. But while this instruction was being given, Lakshmi Mata, who was not present in the assembly, she was on earth trying to do her best to relieve her devotees of the distresses. And when she arrived there, all the Devtas had already taken up different places in the cow body. So what did she do? Huh? What did she do? Buy the magazine, you'll find out what she do. Huh? What did she do? She sat on the gobar within the cow's body. And together, all of them, they went to the shores of the Kshir Sagar and they plead in prayer and devotion to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu appeared and said, "O Devtas, I am aware of the atrocities committed by Kants. And I have already taken that sankalp that I will come as Krishna. I will take avatar and come as Krishna and destroy that unrighteousness. Having given the Devatas the assurance, Lord Vishnu then gazed lovingly at the cow and says, "O Dharati, I am very pleased that you came to me in the Gau Rupam. From today onwards, this animal, this cow, because all the Devatas are seated in the different parts of the body, from today onwards, every hair on the body of the cow will be sacred, every limb on the body of the cow will be sacred, and the entire being, the entire cow, will be an object of adoration and devotion because of your divine presence." Then Lord Vishnu, he singles out Lakshmi Mata. And what did he say? "O Lakshmi Devi, though you are possessed of a very exalted status, yet you, without hesitation, occupy that seat rejected by all the Devatas. Because of your Tej, because of your divine Shakti, that Gobar has attained purity, and I declare that from today onwards, all Yagyashalas, all Vedis, all Pujas must have that Gobar present. And where the Gobar is present, O Devi, you will be there. Where you are, I too will be there, as Lakshmi. Narayan cannot be separated." The Devatas then exclaim, "O Lakshmi Narayan, you are our cosmic parents. Where you are, we will be there too." So now you understand why the cow is so sacred. Now you just understand why Gobar is so important on the dairy. You tell them children always come and leave the dairy, yak, or give. Huh? You know that Gobar has a lot of medicinal properties in it. When Swami Vivekananda now came to the Western world and he was introducing Sanatana Dharma to the Westerners, they mock him. And they say, look at the status of your Dharma. They take the dung of the cow and call that sacred. Swamiji, will you place a piece of ground with the Gobar? I said, bring your most advanced scientists and let them do the test. And the microbes they found there were conducive to human health and well-being. That is not present in any other, in the feces of any other creature. That Gobar represents the Shakti of the Divine Mother on that baby. That is why we do Gauri Ganesh Puja. That is why we do the Gauri Ganesh Puja with it. Also, you may not know, but most of our pundits will know. There's a certain type of hawan you have to do with Gobar. What I mean by that? Throw Gobar in the fire and balls fire. Using fire, Gobar to kindle the fire. To light the fire, like how you use coals and wood to light the fire. You dry the Gobar like cake, you make it like cake and you use it to light the fire. Just like how you, when you're making Bhasma, there are certain Shiv mantras you have to use the cow's Gobar to do that hawan with. And then they give you the procedure Shipuran. You have to roll that in a ball, put it back in the fire, and you have procedures to take place while the Rudram is being chanted. And it has to be done for 11 times. And when that ash comes, it is white. And that is what we call Bhasma, fit to be offered on the lingam. So you have to understand your dharma. Our rishis, what the Western world has not yet discovered and now beginning to discover and still don't understand, our Vedic rishis understood, experienced, and they recorded their experiences in our sastras. and they have left their teachings for us to follow. Nowadays you have nice concrete house. Long ago, what type of house they used to have? Huh? Dark house, and what was the plaster the walls and the floor of the house with? Gobar. And in them days, they didn't have people with so much arthritis and all kind of sickness like they have nowadays. You have nice tile and carpet in your house. You put carpet in your house, doctor tell you take it out. The child getting asthma. You put tile in the ground, pop, you fall and break your back. One slide and you fall and you break your back. It's looking nice, but it's killing you too. Now let me sound a word of warning for you. When you're using gobar, be a little careful with the modern gobar that we have in it. For gobar to be real gobar, it must be extracted from cows that feed on grass. Cows that feed naturally on the grass, that is clean gobar. Clean gobar don't have a bad odor to it, and it doesn't look black or brown. It looks green, a dark shade of green. Anybody who mind animal, you'll know what I'm talking about. Good gobar, it don't decay or rot in a few days' time. It takes long to decompose. Long time when you want gobar, you go in the field, and sometimes the cow will go load 2 3 days, sometimes a whole week before when you take it up, they have no warm in it yet. Nowadays, if you pile up a pile of the animals, they're feeding on pellets and things. In less than a day or 2 days' time, it's smelling bad and fly and worm and or them pellets they give animal. The cows eat these days. Guys, usually chicken guts and all kind of thing, they mince up together with corn and all that kind of thing, and they feeding the animal with that, you know. Don't put that on your baby, you know. Right? Because you only put in gobar, put in murgi and murga and all that kind of thing and stuff there too. That type of gobar is unclean to use. Once the animal is feeding naturally, that is safe to use. And those of you who like to go and do your facials and so on, read what the person is putting on your face, especially if it comes from Asia. It have a nice scent with scented oils and thing in it, but it's gobar extract. So watch it, eh? You want to touch the gobar on the baby, but it's $120 to $300, so just put it in your face now. What kind of logic is that? So this is, my goal was to really give you the identity of how the cow became sacred, but we also touch on the gobar too. Okay? So now you understand why gobar is on the baby, and now you see why the cow became so sacred. The cow is especially loved by Bhagwan Vishnu. That is why when he came in the avatar Shri Krishna, he resided in Gokul, that place where the cows graze. Krishna was of royal descent, but he renounced all of that in Mathura, and he came with the simple villagers of Vrindavan and Gokul to live, to mingle with his devotees, with the animals, with the cows. His abode is known as Golok, the abode of the cows. So that is why the cow is sacred. There is no way in our scripture recorded that an elephant has that degree of sacredness, even though Bhagwan Ganapati wears the elephant head. There is no way in our scriptures a monkey is as sacred, even though Bhagwan Hanuman, his physical form, appears as a monkey. Only the cow has attained that level of sacredness. The origin of the cow was of the Samudra Martan, was one of the treasures that came off while the ocean was being churned. It was not a direct product of evolution. It was sparked by divinity and brought forth on earth through divine intervention. And if you look at the cow, you have more to benefit from the cow alive than dead. When you put them between two pieces of bread and you eat it, that is the end, amen? You have benefit more than that, because in a few hours time you will be hungry again. But if you have a cow, you're not only getting milk, you're not only getting labor, but you also get the gobar as fuel. Nowadays all of you have electric stove and microwave and so on. But do you know, long ago when you had the fireside, is the gobar they used to leave it and clean it out with? You cook your food with the gobar too, just as how you can light fire to do hawan with the gobar. You dry the gobar and you use it as fuel, like firewood, and you could cook your meals and so on with that too. Use it in home construction. You mix it with the dirt, and it becomes like mortar. So only plaster between the roseau and so on that you apply to make your wall. Well, you gotta get a sledgehammer to break down that too, when that dry properly. That was economics back then, and it's still valid now. Those of you who mind animal and are still involved in agriculture, what do you do with the cow urine when your garden start to get a little blighted thing with it? Dilute it with a little bit of water and spray it on the pepper plant and all the other plant and thing, and it will keep away the blight. And then when it decays, what you will do with it? What you will do with it? Manure. Look how things turn around. You was getting it free a few years ago, now you're going to pay $60 a pack for rotten gobar. Huh? It is a versatile, the cow is very versatile. I remember looking at a documentary once and they tell you, if a person in India has an acre of land and 2 heads of cattle, he's self-sufficient. He can maintain himself and his family and still have money to put away. And the traditional Indian family is big family still. So this is how the cow became sacred. Any question before I move on from Bhagavatam? You all understand the divinity of the cow? You all understand the origin of the cow? And you see the different parts. That is why Hindus, we do not harm the cow. We do not disrespect the cow. Because the cow, just like how you will worship your Shivlingam and how we are worshiping our Shaligram, all the devatas reside in the different limbs of the cow. Again, those of you long ago, you know Bhagavad was the more popular yet in Trinidad. And more in the rural community. The cow shed right here and the puja going on right here. We grew up like that. Some of us grew up like that. Nowadays, you tell them, Sharon, go bring some, go. They ain't want to walk outside in the yard barefoot. Huh? Some of them when I come and see the nail fight out here. How you just do work in the kitchen and things? Huh? So the cow is not only sacred to us, but it is very economical. It's worth more alive than dead. And from the milk, we even touch the milk yet. The milk has so many remedies. When you transform that milk to dahi and to ghee, there are so many different byproducts you can get. Each one of them has its medicinal property. The Western world call it what? Yoga today. And it has so many different properties for all types of ailments. And thousands of years ago, our Vedic rishis were making it in their ashram and calling it what? Dahi. Nowadays, if you want to go for a little, get a little bit of dahi, I'll pay $50, $40 for a little bottles when the pujas go. And we also had dahi train away by the pot long time. Well, I can't remember long time ago, Nani, and there was a walk on time, a pot in the head, and a cup. Nearly in every village used to have, and there was a celery dahi right here. Huh? Only forgetting this. Although that was a source of economic earning at that time, but look at the thinking of our grandparents. They saw the value in it. Today, what they consider to be beverages and refreshment? Huh? Coke, sweet drink, and all that kind of thing. You want something to drink long time, you're looking for the when the lady passing with the dahi. Huh? Wait, nowadays you're waiting for the ice cream man, the snow cone man, this one and that one and all kind of thing. So just reflect on what our grandparents used to do and you see the value of it. They were not like what the British led you to believe, illiterate. They may not have known English, but they were very advanced in their thinking and in their culture. So back to Garu Puran, Garuji, Lord Vishnu is telling Garuji, that individual who may have performed the ceremony of the Gaudan will receive the benefits of being transported across the Vaitarini. And O Garuji, the torture that awaits in the Vaitarini, only that he would be spared. Remember, I keep telling you, you cannot escape the consequences of your karmas. You have to experience them. If they are good, they are called punya, blessings. If they are bad karmas, they are called papa, or sins. And you know, we have a concept saying God could sin you. God does sin. In Sanatan Dharma, God does sin. He gives you the rewards, He gives you the consequence of your karmas. He guides the unfolding of your karmas. And how do we know what karma, good or bad, is going to affect us at what stage in our life? There is where your Guru comes in now. When he casts the Rasi Kundalini, you'll see when the dasas, the Mahadasas and the Antara dasas and so on come in. So you'll know when the good and the bad times are coming. As a result, the good and the bad karma is going to start bearing its fruits. So that is the way you can get ease from the Vaitarini. So what Bhagwan did here is perform bypass surgery for some of us. Trikau, we bypass the Vaitarini, but you still have to go Patal. So now we will take a look at that section of Garu Puran that tells us the different, based on what your deeds were, the different Patals, the different Naraks that are here. And before we go and look at some of them, let me first describe to you how Patal is arranged. Now, Earth is in the middle, then you have Bhu, Bhuva, Swa, Mahajana, Tapa, Satya. Those are the heavens. And as you go upward, you go in higher and higher. Right? Below that, you have the Patals, the different layers of hell, as we want to say it in English term. But they are regions of darkness for which you experience the consequence of your bad karmas. And those Patals, there are, in each Patal, there are 4 Naraks. So, if you want to call Trinidad as, don't want to say I say Trinidad is Patal. If you want to put Trinidad as a country, and you break the country into 4 divisions. So you have East, let's say you have Port of Spain side, you have Grandi side, you have Central, and you have South. 4 regions. So too a Patal is divided into 4 regions. So if you have 7 Patal, each one of them is divided into 4 regions. How many Naraks are you going to have? 28. So in Garu Puran it speaks of 28 Naraks. Narak, literally, also the English people will put Narak meaning hell. They will also put Narak meaning Patal meaning hell. Right? But they are regions. Now the natural residents of these regions are like the Nagas. They are like the demons, the Asuras, the Daityas. Now they are different category of demons. They are different. They are Rakshas, Asuras, they are Daityas and others. And the soul are visitors to these, or the sinful soul are visitors to these regions. Just like when you leave Trinidad and you go to the United States or to any foreign country, you are a visitor there. There are certain things the citizens will have, certain rights the citizens will have that a visitor don't have. So the soul, now in Sanatan Dharma, heaven and hell I told you is not permanent. In other faiths they tell you, eternal damnation, you are condemned to hell to all eternity. In Sanatan Dharma, only when your bad karmas or good karmas expire, then you are reborn upon this face of the earth, unless you attain moksha. So, the natural residents, they are not afflicted by what you go through. Like let's say you go to Miami on a vacation, the ordinary people who lives in Miami, they will get up and go to work every day. They go about their merry business. You as a visitor, you go sightseeing, you go here, you go there, you go all about. And you have a tour guide to take you, or you have whoever you stay by to take you around. The same concept applies here. You have the natural residents of Patal, they go about their own demonic way of living and their own lifestyle. They are not influenced by what Yam does to you. And then you have your tour guide in the Patal regions. Who is what? Yamadoots. Right? They will take you to the different regions of Patal where certain services will be provided to you. And we'll see what services those are for being in Patal. Just like when you go to a vacation, your tour guide will take you to certain places and you will be entertained or informed accordingly. So too you have different demons who will do different things, who specialize in different type of torture. So they will take you to certain naraks and these demons will have their way with you. When they finish, Yamdoots just take you to another venue or another destination you have to go to. And that keeps on going until Yam determines your bad karma has expired. And time, I told you, time in the heavens is different from time on earth. And I explained to you why we do a Bandara year apart. 1 day in the heavenly regions is 1 year upon earth. So it takes a soul, if you're reading, it takes a soul 1 day to reach the abode of Yam, which is equivalent to 1 day on earth. So let us hear about some of these naraks and what they have for them. Now I'll be summarizing here. I wouldn't be doing too much of Sanskrit quotation, right? But the important thing is that you get an idea of what awaits the soul that goes to these regions. Not to scare you. Again, Garupura has to give you information. And I told you, if you don't like where you are, Garupuran concludes, you have time to make changes once the soul is in the body. After the soul leaves the body, you cannot change. So let us hear our description of the different naraks. Shri Krishna Sharanam Namah, Shri Krishna Sharanam Namah. Praise the Lord Shri Krishna Chandra ki Jai. So tonight now this entire poster in front of you will unfold. So far we're focusing on the middle section there. So what this does, this is what you do in your lifetime and this is what you experience in the different naraks underneath. This is what the person did in his lifetime. This is what he's experiencing in the different, in that region that he has been condemned to. Okay? So the entire poster now is going to unfold. Now, like I said, I cannot do the all 28 naraks. So I'm just doing some of them. Okay? So, there is a narak by the name of Tram Singram, and that means heavy flogging. Those who rob others of their wealth. So over here you're seeing a guy with a scale. He's a merchant, and if you notice, he's putting some device there to cause the scale to show an abnormal reading. And we know people who just do these things. And not only a vendor, anybody who does any corrupt act to deceive or to rob others of their hard-earned wealth, then they will be cast head down in this narak. There, they will be falling on sharp slabs of stone, which are red hot, and they will faint under tremendous pain. Upon recovering, they will be greeted repeatedly, night and day, until their time is up, as determined by Yam. This goes on for 8 divine years. 8 divine years? 1 day is 1 year on earth. Their day, 300, in the world of the Devatas, in astrology, 360 days, right, is a Devata year. Not 365 like what we have on earth. So you imagine that going on for 8 divine years. You know what kind of torture is that, night and day? Huh? So those of you who feel like a rob people and get away with it, continue. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Then we have another one called Kumbi Pakam, meaning cooked in oil. Then you have to do something really like to make cook, you know. They like to fry or too bad. So let me hear what in this narak, those who kill animals to satisfy their own gratification and their own stomach, there those animals appear and they are cut limb by limb and boiled in that vessel of oil. And this goes on for 30 divine years. How much they want to make a good curry duck now? Huh? Nobody want a chunky and nice pot for me? How much will I become vegetarian now? Remember, once the soul is in the body, you can make changes. Another narak, and this is one I want to focus a lot on because it has a lot to do with what's going on in society right now. Ashtapadaram, the narak by Ashtapadaram, it means flogging with sharp objects. So in other words, again, blows, but what you're getting licks with, it bursts up your skin as you're getting licks. Alright? And who gets thrown in this bata, in this hell? Those who abandon their swadharma. What is your swadharma? Huh? Your naturally born duty. You are a householder. Your swadharma as a householder is to bring up your children in accordance with the injunction of the scripture. You are a brahmachari, a student. Your swadharma as a student, go to school and study hard. Don't waste your parents' time. Don't study boyfriend and girlfriend. You are a businessman. Your swadharma as a businessman, conduct your business with integrity. You are a politician, conduct the affairs of state above board. Don't have children popping up every other day. Your swadharma as an individual, you are responsible to develop yourself despite your condition in life to the best of your ability. Your swadharma as a Sanatanist is what? To practice the tenets of Sanatana Dharma to the best of your ability. And here's where I want to give the focus now. Why Hindus don't go around converting others? Because of this concept of what your swadharma is. You are born into a home that practices a certain religion. God is not dummy. He's here, He's there, He's everywhere. He knows that there are different faiths upon the face of the earth. He knows why He put you in a particular faith. He knows the quality of your karma and where it is most efficient that you will work it out. Hindus don't go around converting others. We do not believe in conversion because of the concept of your swadharma. If I were to call a dog right here and write C-O-W and stick it on the cow, on the dog, will that become a cow? You go and get milk from him? Huh? But that is what you do when you change your religion. You're born a Hindu, somebody put garaha on a piece of paper, they stick it in your forehead, and you're going and praying all over the place. And you more holy than them, than who born in the religion. That is not your swadharma. When you neglect your swadharma, Yam is going to judge you according to the dharma you are born in. So you throw away your jandi, you throw away your book, you stop your hawan, you pelt away your japmala. When he comes for you, did you perform your nitya karmas? I a Christian, I a Muslim. Huh? Regardless of who you are, every Jeev Atma has to go through this. In different faiths, they will put it across. And believe me, among the other faiths, Hinduism have it the most merciful. Because the other faiths, they give no chance. They tell you, believe or die. And if you don't believe, you're eternally condemned. Sanatana Dharma tells you, even if you're condemned, when that period of exile or punishment is over, when that karma has been exhausted, you are coming back on the face of the earth. So you have more hope in Sanatana Dharma. So you're jumping from the frying pan into the fire. I just can't understand the logic sometimes. And these are the weak-minded ones in our society. And the more weak-minded they are, the bigger the mouth is be. As the old sayings go, empty vessels make the most noise. Look what Jim Jones and all of them fellas do. Koresh in Texas. Huh? Watch what ISIS is doing. Since Hinduism came upon the face of this earth, from the Indus Valley to today, which terrorist group we fought? We defended our dharma when time came. And many times we defended our dharma by working around our system. Just recently, there was a big uproar in the community about child marriage. And while it may have its time and place, you know how that came into existence? That was forged by our grandparents and great-grandparents when the Mughals were committed untold atrocities. In order to save our culture, our great-grandparents at that time saw it was necessary to marry the children and let them start practicing their dharma from early. So if by chance their village or their community get invaded by the Mughals, at least the dharma would have passed on to the child they had given birth to. That is where that concept came into. It was survival of the fittest. It is what was needed at that time. Like I said, we are living in a different era now. And while we have it placed then, some changes may be needed made. But you have to understand your history of why that came into being. You must understand your swadharma and practice your swadharma. And the consequence of neglecting your swadharma, only human beings does this, you know. A cobra will never try to become a hummingbird. A cat will never try to become a dog. Only human beings just want to become donkey. But the donkey doesn't want to be the human being. So I don't know who is the smarter one. I don't know who is the smarter one. So your swadharma, for the neglect of your swadharma, you stay 5 kalpas. Now that's a big measurement of time. In a kalp, okay, so if you think a divine year is long, a kalp is 1 day of Brahma. 1,000 divine years make 1 day of Brahma. So you see what you're putting yourself through? Those are calculations some of us can't even start to think out in the head. Then there is another one. Tamamurti, being burnt alive. Who goes through this? Those who plunder and steal the wealth of mandirs, steal from murtis, and steal from institution that takes care of the less fortunate in society. Remember, I told you, from Vedic astrology, there is nothing explaining why sometimes a child born without a hand or without a foot. The same 9 grahas that governs you and I governs a person born under that condition. It is the torture. What Yam does to the Yamduts, he burns that part of the body out, so when you're reborn, you don't have that limb with you. So those of you who want to go and play bandit and take the people chained from the murti, or those of you in organization cannot account for bills, for temple expenses, or put yourself in positions. You know, it has sometimes in some temples, things that be donated to the temple and sometimes you don't know about it. It gives for one purpose and sometimes you can't find it. We're gone. It's their hand and foot. When you're in this country, we have some big rats, boy. There's thief everything. So when you steal from these type of charitable institution that does the work of dharma, taking care of the less fortunate society, you are burned continuously until those karmas are exhausted. And when you're reborn without eye and ears and nose and mouth and all that kind of thing, depending on what you do. Then you have another one, Girim Bhojanam, meaning you become food for worms. Who goes to this type of patal? Those who do not honor their parents, who make their parents' life miserable in their old age, and who disrespect, dishonor, and criticize and curse the Guru. They are the ones, these men and women are thrown into this narak. They are beaten severely and worms start coming out from the wounds. That is why in our scriptures, at the level of the Ved, in Rig Ved it states, Tvameva Mata, Chapita Tvameva. Oh God, you are my mother and my father. Gurura Brahma, Gurura Vishnu. So when you dishonor and disrespect these people in society, your parents, you dishonor and disgrace your family name, this is what awaits you. Then there is another one, Salam Mili, meaning embracing hot images. And who do you think is the kind of people that go to embrace these hot images? This one happened to be identical right here. This fella, he is the village ramgoat. Huh? Or this lady is the garden tools in the village. Huh? An image is made into a man or a woman depending on who are you. And it's set a fire, when it get red hot, you like to hug up, you're hugging up. Huh? So all of you who there's had children all over the place. And only when time to claim inheritance, the children start to pop up from all over like bacha. When you neglect your duties and your responsibility, running on this one and running on that one, this is the type of torment that awaits you. Prana Rodham, piece by piece, it means. In this narak, those who will hunt animals, not for the sake of food, but for the sake of game. You know, if you have a thrill of killing, then you go fishing just to catch the fish because you want to do it. Or you go on a hunt, you want to hunt the animal just because you show you're macho. Huh? People who just like to hunt and shoot and kill and things. In this hell, remember the other day I told you, the second night I think, 1 year before you passed on, Yamaraj start consulting Chitragupta. 6 months before the Yamduts come to you, the dogs, the hellhounds, as they will say in the Western world, they come. And that is how, and we put the pieces together, how sometimes when somebody is when death is near, how you'll hear the dogs crying and all that kind of thing. And I told you the cats and the dogs, they have an ability that we don't have. They have the sixth sense where they can see the astral world. So when these dogs are coming to sniff out wherever these jivatmas are. Now, it is not so important where natural death is concerned. All this is natural death phenomena we're talking about. Tomorrow night when we look at unnatural death, what becomes a boot? Right? These hellhounds become very important to God sees these wandering spirits when time comes. So these same Yamraj dog and them, so the house was like a pet dog. You go by people's house and say, nice doggy. Let me see if you do this one with this one. Huh? The Yamnuts release you, and when you think you get away, the dogs chase after you. And they grab you, and they tear you to shreds. Then there is another one that goes by name of Vaisanam, meaning bashing by clubs. And what is this? Those who sell their authority for personal gain, meaning if you are a pundit, you manipulate your profession to take advantage of people, to keep them in a certain mindset. If you are a Kshatri, an administrator, this person could only get a job if I could get something in return from you. You know, you have people like that in society. If you are guilty of this, then you go to this hell and you are bashed by the attendants of Yam until you fall unconscious. Upon recovery and you born upon earth, you are born in the worst state of poverty. So those of us in Kali Yuga, you'll hear about where the crooked Brahmins will sell the scriptures. They will manipulate others and hoard the wealth. Or the Kshatris, the kings, they will be merciless with their subjects. If you're in positions of authority and you're manipulating your authority to keep people in a certain way, this is what awaits you. Authority is given to serve, and if you cannot serve, don't take it. Then you have this one here. Some of you have got to change your Christmas stocks. Ayapaham, drinking and burning substance. So what they do, they melt metal and they take lava. And those of you who are guilty of abusing drugs, drinking alcohol, and making other people's lives miserable, they take something and they open your mouth and they pour all these hot liquids down your throat. You know, one fella asked me to come to do a little piece of walk around the yard. He said, give me something to drink now. So naturally, I have cold water in the fridge. He said, hey, what thing that's one throat? You say, what thing that's one throat? Okay, you're getting with one throat just now. Okay, come in. Thing that's one throat. This is just born in throat, like born in everything. So when you catch me off guard, I say, where do you think that's one throat? I mean, I never taste alcohol in it.